Is your social media falling short because you're juggling everything in your business? If that's you, go ahead, drop a one in the comment section and let me know. Or are you looking for a way to stay consistent and relevant to your audience? And if that's you, drop a two and let me know. Today's topic: maximizing your social media impact, the importance of consistency, and how to achieve it. Welcome to the Influencers Journey Show. My name is Taria Hodge, and the big question we set out to ask each week on the show is: how does the average entrepreneur like us, who started with limited time, zero marketing budget, or little to no online presence, get the authentic message in the marketplace and become a person of influence? And then also, what skills must you learn? And most importantly, who are you required to become to magnetically attract your divine client and build your loyal following? Now, I'm super excited for today's topic. So, whether you're a coach, whether you're a consultant or a course creator, one of the things I think that we could all agree with is that consistency is key when it comes to increasing your impact and growing your audience. But I'm here to tell you, I get it, I understand, because I know that it comes with a whole slew of challenges. And so, if you are out there and you find yourself struggling to find the time to create and post consistently and regularly, you definitely want to tune in to today's episode, because we're going to break some things down around that today. Or if you find yourself, struggling to create engaging content. Now, I know this is one that I get this question all the time, from clients, I get it from my peers. How do I create content that resonates with my target audience and be able to do that on a consistent basis? So we're going to talk a little bit about that today as well. And then the big one: keeping up with the latest trends and best practices for each platform. And as you probably know, it seems like every week you turn around, there's a new social media platform that jumps up on the horizons, and you might probably find yourself struggling to create a strategy or try to find out how is the best way for you to show up on that platform. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And so, if any of these things resonate with you, go ahead, utilize the comment section and let me know which one of these things is on the top of your list that you are challenged with and you have questions around. Now, I'm going to share the reason why I decided to have this conversation is I was in a conversation and also doing some thinking for myself. And one of the things that I came up with, and understanding social media, and even for myself, positioning as an influencer in the marketplace, it all boils down to consistency. And so we all have heard the saying, we all know the quote: if you want to be successful at anything, you have to be consistent at it. And then there's a saying that I tell myself like every day: you have to plan to be consistent. And so the second part of planning to be consistent is you have to get in deliberate practice. And what do I mean by deliberate practice? Deliberate practice is simply creating habits and having habits and having routines. And so the big question becomes, what are the habits and what are the routines that you are going to create around your social media? And so I know for me, when I first started on the journey, it seemed like as if I was all over the place, feeling overwhelmed with social media. And I realized that it wasn't just about creating a plan and having a strategy. I had to be able to execute the plan, effectively. I had to get some habits under my belt, and I had to also create the space. I had to create some time in my scheduling to do these things. And so this is what we're going to talk about today. And so if you are joining us, one of the things that you've probably noticed is that I am on the influencer's journey today by myself. So Suzanne is on vacation. So if you're out there, just go ahead and give her a shout out. She'll be joining us on the next episode of the show. And so you have the wonderful opportunity to be here with me today. And so before we get started in true influencers journey show fashion, take a minute to let me know where you are watching from. So if you are out there, you're just joining us, take a minute to drop in the comments, drop your city, drop your state. Let me know where you are tuning in from. And why do I do this? I do this, we ask this every single time that we do the show, because we want to know where our super achievers are hailing from. And also, after you let us know where you are tuning in from, take a minute to let us know who you serve in your business. That's right, who you serve. Who is your ideal client? Who do you serve in your business? And then also, how do you serve in your business? Tell us what you do in your business. Now, we ask this because one of the things that we get excited about is to take and see all of the virtual networking that happens every time we do the show. And even after the show is over, we love to see the virtual networking that happens in the comments and even during the week in our Super Achievers community, our storytelling for Super Achievers community. But here's the thing, we won't know who you serve and how you serve unless you tell us. So take a minute to go ahead and do that. And then finally, also take a minute to go ahead and share this broadcast or invite another super achiever to the conversation. So I know many of you are watching from our community. So if you are in our community, shout out, to you. And then if not, if you're watching outside of the community on our business pages, you have the ability to invite another business bestie, another achiever to engage in the conversation, because this is a thing that I know. If you are challenged with something, you have questions around something, I guarantee you, you probably know five other people who are challenged or who have questions around the same thing. So go ahead, tag another super achiever, bless them with the information that we are about to uncover today. And so, without any more being said, for those of you who are just joining us, welcome back to the Influencers Journey Show. Today's topic is maximizing your social media impact, the importance of consistency, and how to achieve it. So, one of the things that I want to start off talking about is the idea of deliberate practice and why deliberate practice is key. And so, one of the things, like I stated at the top of the show, is the key to success on social media is to be able to stay consistent. And I know when I speak to a lot of people, and even for myself sometimes, it feels like it's that struggle of how do you show up and how do you be consistent and how do you get all of these things that you want to get done on social media. And the struggle is, how do I do all of that, if especially if you're a solopreneur, if you are in the process, of doing things on your own, you haven't started to build your team, or maybe you're in the process of building your team, but things still need to get done. And so when I take a look at part of my journey, consistency was one of the biggest things that I struggled with. Like, how do I manage to do it all and do it well? And so one of the things, before we get into the term deliberate practice and actually what deliberate practice means, I just want to go ahead and tee this up because I can't say this enough. One of the things that's available to you when you are consistent on your social media is you get a chance to really increase your engagement on social media. So people ask me all of that time. Matter of fact, I had this conversation this week with a colleague, and we were talking about engagement. And one of the things that I know that definitely affects engagement on social media is your consistency. And so if you show up sporadic on social media, your audience doesn't know when to expect you. And that could affect definitely your engagement. So you want to make sure that you are putting things in place. You have a plan in place that would allow you to show up on a consistent basis. Now, when I talk about consistency, I like to define consistency as this. So I am not one of those people out there, who would tell you that you need to post like 5 to 6 times, a day on every single social media platform. That's not my idea of consistency. My idea of consistency is being able to set the expectation for your audience. Okay, so if you're out there, you're watching, whether you catch us on the replay or not, I want you to really write this down. Okay, create the expectation for your audience. So, what do I mean by creating the expectation? Creating the expectation is simply showing up in such a way that your audience comes to expect you. So, if you are out there and you're doing live videos, whether you're doing your videos on Facebook, you're doing your videos on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, there are millions of places that you could show up. I just love to talk about video because we talk about engagement, and this is still the best way for you to get engagement on your social media, by doing videos. And so if you're out there and you're doing videos, especially live videos, when can your audience come to expect you? Okay, are they going to expect you on Saturday mornings, Monday nights, Wednesday, midday, whatever that date and time is? You have to create that expectancy for your audience. And one of the things that I always say, when you show up for your audience, they'll turn around and they'll show up for you. So that's the first thing. If you're taking a look at, engagement, you want to be consistent. And then also, consistency gives you the opportunity to build your brand awareness. And so a lot of us out there, are starting businesses and establishing a presence in the marketplace. But here's the thing: if you don't get out there and talk about your business and show up and be consistent on social media, no one will know about your business. So this is the unique opportunity that's available to you when it comes to social media. You get the opportunity to show up and increase your brand awareness. And then ultimately, what everyone wants is to be able to have loyal followers, okay, and to build loyalty around your brand. And so those are some of the benefits, of setting in place ways, or creating consistency inside of your brand, or creating consistency around your brand. Okay. And so this brings me to the thought that I was journaling and meditating about a couple of weeks ago. And I thought it would have been a really great conversation to have here with our super achievers today. And the thought is around deliberate practice. And deliberate practice is really key. So when we talk about deliberate practice, what do I mean? So if you know what deliberate practice is, you hear us talk about that all the time, in our storytelling, or Unleash the Power of Your Story. But deliberate practice is something that we should be striving to do in all areas of our life, and then especially in business. So what are you in deliberate practice around? And so I liken deliberate practice to creating habits. Okay. And so, what are some of the habits that you are, or that you have? Let me just say this, because I know some people already have habits around their social media. So, what are some of the habits that you have around your social media? And then, what are some of the habits that you are growing into, or you've identified, that you need to develop in or around your social media? So, that's what we're going to talk about. And so, I thought it would be really cool to take a look at, some of the habits that, I discovered for myself, that made it easy for me to show up and shine on social media, to be consistent, and especially consistent around creating content. Okay. And so one of the habits, and I think this is probably the most important one, for me, it's been such a game changer and a game shifter for me in business, is getting in the habit around reading. So how many of you have reading built in as a habit in your life or around your business? How many of you have time set aside, every day, that you read? Okay. And so if that's you, go ahead, let me know. Yes, I'm very consistent about my reading. And so we're talking about content, and we're talking about all of these things. And one of the things that I realized that helped me to be able to consistently, create content, is to get in the habit of reading, getting the habit of learning. And so as I read, I'm always thinking about my audience. I'm always thinking about you super achievers, others, and what are the things that I'm learning that I could bring to the table and I could share with you guys. So it's always about being able to be consistent and create that habit. The second habit, right, deliberate practice that I've uncovered that definitely has helped me, with my social media and developing strategies for social media and staying consistent, is getting in the habit of journaling. So how many of you, after you read or after you finish your day, you start your day, you actually spend some time journaling and processing experiences? And I'm going to tell you, as an entrepreneur, this is so key to be able to process information, things that we're learning, process our experiences that we have out there on our journey, process experiences that we have with our clients, even with our tribe members. All of these things become gold mines for content. So I'm just going to say that these experiences that we have become the gold mine for our content. So a lot of times people are asking the questions, what do I say? How do I show up? How do I find, things to post about, talk about every day on social media? I can't do it. And I say, yes, you can. It's very simple, very easy. You just have to be able to create some habits. And one of the habits is journaling, taking a look at your experiences and looking at those experiences specifically in the light of, what is it that I'm going to share with my audience? What did I learn going through this experience that can benefit or help me serve my audience? And you have to get those things down. And the third habit that definitely helps is getting in the habit of writing. And so for those of you who know me, and you probably know me for years, one of the things you've probably heard me say a few years ago is that, oh my gosh, I struggle to write. And I remember saying that all the time. I struggle to write. And it almost felt as if every time I had to write a piece, whether it's long or short, I felt like I needed to take a nap. But but one of the things that I gave myself the opportunity to do is to get better at writing. And so I had to create some habits around my writing. And so how many of you have time set aside, in your business during your day, to write? Do you have a writing time? To just practice getting better at writing, whether you're writing long form content, you're writing short form content, because this is the thing that people ask all the time: how do I make my content more engaging? So are you practicing, in the writing department? And then finally, one of the biggest things that I also uncovered, that in order for me to stay consistent, I had to create some habits even around producing a show. So we show up here on Saturday mornings for the Influencers Journey Show, and I tell people, there's a lot that goes on in producing the show. There's a lot of moving pieces that goes on, but the key is to be able to find ways to do it in a consistent basis. And so one of the things that I realized that needed to happen is that I needed to be consistent. And that's why I talk about creating that expectation, being able to set a date and time on your calendar that you are going to do certain things. And then once you put those things on your calendar, you honor those things on your calendar. Okay. And so if this is making sense to any of you, just go ahead, take a moment, drop a comment into the comment section, let me know. Or if you have specific challenges around being consistent on social media that you would like for me to answer for you, or, with you on our time today, just go ahead and pop that into the comment section as well. And so the next thing that comes up, and I know you're probably saying, Turia, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. Being consistent is great. Creating habits is great. But how do I do all of that with everything that I have to do in my business without feeling overwhelmed? So how many of you are still experiencing that overwhelming feeling when it comes to your social media. You're looking at it, it's a lot of stuff to do, and you're thinking, like, wow, this is absolutely too much. And so, one of the things that I had to learn, and I had to take a look at a specific process when it comes to staying consistent and not feeling overwhelmed, is a process that I call chunking. So how many of you have ever, heard of the term chunking before? And so if you don't know what chunking is, this is the first time you've heard of the term chunking. Chunking is the process of breaking a process down into smaller pieces. So, how many of you out there are on social media and you're trying to do everything at one time? And what do I mean by doing everything at one time? You have an idea to go ahead and have a conversation or explore a topic on social media. And as soon as the idea hits you, what you do is you flip open your camera and you go to your social platform and you start to, produce a video, or you start to write a piece of content. Okay. And then in the middle of you either beginning to do that video or writing that content, you start to think about things. You go like, oh my gosh, I need an image. What would be the best image to go along with this video? Oh my gosh, after the video is done, what do I want people to do? I need to have a call to action. Oh my goodness, I'm about to do this, but I want to be able to share this on other social media platforms. And oh my gosh, I'm going to do this video, and how many people are going to show up? Are people actually going to show up to watch the video? And so these are all valid questions, valid concerns that you have when you are producing content. And so one of the things that I like to, share with, especially my clients, people that I work with specifically to help them, kick the feeling of overwhelm, is to plan. Have a plan to do these things and break the process down into smaller pieces. And so I get it. I know that there are times when we all feel inspired, that we just want to either flip open our camera or jump onto our social media platform, and we want to share that post with that idea that we have that's top of mind right away. And that's great. But be honest, that doesn't happen every single day. And so you have to get in the habit of planning. And so there's a couple of systems, a few systems that I'm going to encourage everyone, to start to think about and start to put in place in your business for your social media. So the first system that I'm going to share with you is having a planning system, content planning system. So how many of you actually have a systematic way that you sit down and you plan your content? Now, I talk about this all the time because if you don't have a systematic way of planning your content, what's going to happen is time is going to roll around on you very fast. Okay. And then you're going to have, if when things come up, you're going to have gaps, and you're going to have all sorts of things happening with your social media. So, do you have a plan in place where you are strategically thinking about the content that you are sharing on social media and when that content goes out on social media? So, that's the first thing, being able to have a content planning system in place. The second system that you want to have in place is your content production system. And I want everyone to get this. So now, after you have laid out your content and you know when your content is going to go out, what all is needed to produce that content? Okay. And so, do you need to write a captivating caption? Do you have your call to action? Do you have the best image? And when I talk about the image that will stop the scroll of your audience, because that's the first thing that people see. They see the imagery, right? So you want them to be able to stop the scroll. And so, do you have all that you need, or all that it takes for you to be able to produce your content? Okay, so do you have a content production system in place? And then the third system we're going to talk about, or that I'll share, is your content distribution system. Okay, so how is the content being distributed? So after you plan the content, you produce the content, how does the content get across on social media platforms? And that's a specific system in place, because one of the things you'll notice, most people, are not just on one social media platform, they're on several platforms. And so the content that you create, the content that you produce, how are you able to disseminate that content across other platforms? And that specifically is your content distribution system. And so those are, three systems that I have learned to take a look at, that allows me to strategically, show up consistently on social media, having a content planning system, having a content production system, and a content distribution system. I'm getting tongue tied today. So knowing exactly what time and when I'm going to sit down and plan for my content, when I'm going to produce the content, and then when the content is going to get distributed. Okay. And one of the biggest things that I would like to share, that is the key to making this work, is being able to set aside time on your calendar to make these things happen. And I'm going to tell you, this is the biggest secret to kicking the overwhelm. So once again, people are, showing up, in, kind of helter skelter. They really don't have, set times on their calendar where they know, this is what I'm working on specifically today. This is what I'm going to do at this time. So just like you do other things in your business, you need to allot the time to do those things for your social media. So the biggest thing is being able to set the time on your calendar and honor it. Okay. And so the third thing that I wanted to take a minute to talk about is best practices, regardless of the social media platform. And like I stated at the top of the top of the show, is that it can get a little confusing, or probably a whole lot confusing for some, when we take a look at the different social media platforms out there, and what is required, to show up on each of those platforms and do that successfully. But some of the things that I'm going to share with you, best practices, they remain the same regardless of the platform that you are on. And these are the foundations and the basics. So one of the things that, and probably the most important thing that you want to take a look at, is being your authentic self. And I know you probably heard people say that all of the time, that you have to show up, be authentic to your brand, and be true to your brand. And so exactly what does that mean? And the impact of that. There's so many things that we see on social media, but the biggest things, people want to be able to relate to the people or to the brands that they are doing business with. Okay. And so you have to know and be true to your authentic self. And so I had the opportunity to do some training couple weeks ago, and came across a question that someone was asking: how do I get my content to go viral? And I see that all the time. And people are now taking a look at trends, and they're taking a look at challenges, especially if you're on platforms like TikTok and especially Instagram, right? Everyone thinks that going viral is the goal. And I'm here to share with you, going viral is not the goal. The goal is to be able to identify and connect with your divine clients, your people, the people that you want to attract in your business. Because think about it, you can create content out there that would be, viral content, but it's not really you, and it's not really your brand. The challenge that you face after that is being able to continue to produce that type of content. Okay. And so while, yes, going viral will give you bigger numbers, give you a larger hit, number one, what are you going viral with? Is it one of those challenges that has nothing to do, with your brand? So you get a lot of eyes on that content, but those people aren't necessarily the people that you want to work with in your business because it was totally something different. Or are you taking the time, to build out your message in the marketplace and then attract your right fit people? Okay. And so that's just the first thing. You want to make sure that you are being authentic and you are being true to yourself when you show up on social media, regardless of the platform. Okay. The second thing that you want to also pay attention to is being able to be consistent, and not just consistent in showing up, but be consistent in your style on social media, and be consistent in the tone of voice on social media. Okay, because once again, your audience comes to expect those things for you. And then I shared this before. The third thing that you want to take a look at, regardless of the platform that you're on, is building in consistency, making sure that you are showing up on a consistent and regular basis. Okay. And I know people ask a question all the time of what's the best time for me to post on social media. And I say for everyone, there's no set time to post on social media. If you want to take a look at when the majority of your audience is engaging with your content, you could always take a look at the insights on your platform. So most platforms will give you the opportunity for you to get those analytics. Okay. And so one of the best ways for you to get the analytics is to show up consistent. Put your content out there, and then you get a chance to backtrack to see when your audience is consuming the content, when they're engaging with the content. So make sure that you show up, and you show up consistently first, and then you're taking a look and you're tracking your analytics, and then that will give you a better snapshot of how and when your audience is engaging with your content. Okay. And then the fourth thing that I'm going to share with you is, don't be afraid, to experiment. Okay. And that's what it's all about. It's all about trying on new things and taking a look and see the things that your audience resonate well. And then you do more of those things, and the things that, aren't getting high engagement, then you kind of cut out those things. Okay. And so that one is one that I know for myself, I'm definitely having fun with, just trying on new things and taking a look and see what content formats, my tribe absolutely loves, and producing more content in that vein. And then lastly, don't be afraid to collaborate with other creators, other influencers out there, to increase the reach of your brand. Okay, so a lot of times we're out here and we're doing things in a vacuum, and we're doing things on our own, and it doesn't have to be. So start to take a look at who are the people out there that have your people, and how can you serve together to create a better experience for your people, for your tribe, for your audience. Okay, so don't forget that part of social media is social networking, and it is our job as influencers, to form collaborative relationships with other influencers out there in the marketplace. Okay. And so if any of this is hitting home for you, just go ahead, take a moment, drop a comment, let me know, or share a question in the comment section, and I'll be happy to once again take the time to explore those things in our time together. And so while I wait for that to come in, one of the things that I'll take a moment to answer, because this also came up when I did a training a few weeks ago, how did I come up with the process of chunking? And so I explained the process of chunking at the top of the broadcast, where chunking is the ability to take something big and breaking it down into smaller pieces. And I came up with that process as I started to look at my own social media, and I looked at the areas, in which I was struggling, and started to feel overwhelmed when it comes to producing social media. And, one of the things that I realize is that there there were always things that needed to happen, for for every social media post that I made, every live video that I made. And so what do I mean by that? And I'm just going to stick to the example of being able to do a show. So one of the things that I realized that in order to do the show, I need to have a topic, right? So there's no rocket science there. You need to have something to talk about. And so instead of waiting until the week to create a topic, what I started to do is like, how do I, create my bank of topics ahead and plan out a month, 2 months, 3 months worth of topics. So I will know each week what is it that I'm going to share or talk about on social media. And then after I came up with the topics, then the second thing I knew was that each topic needs to have a description. You need to have a compelling description as to why your audience needs to join you on the show. So that needed to be done. Then there's call to action. There's graphics that need to be created. Then we have to get into the promotions. And this is one of the things that people miss all the time. Your are you promoting your videos? Are you promoting your content? And what do I mean by that? We're talking about engagement and we're talking about consistency and the power of consistency. So a lot of times we're not getting the engagement that we want, especially if our brand is a smaller brand. We're not just taking advantage of everything that's available to us. And so one of the things that I learned was that, you know what, if I want people to show up, on my videos, then I have to promote my videos. I have to share that with my email list. I have to share it with people in my community. I have to personally invite influencers that I want to hop on to the video. And so think about it. I can't do all of that, or I chose not to do all of that the same day that I'm doing the video. Okay. And so I realized that I needed to set aside a specific time to do that. And then, even after the video is done, there are things that need to happen after the video, like going back, engaging with comments, answering questions, right? What's going to be, the day and time that I do that, even repurposing the videos, making sure the video, or the show gets posted on other social media platforms. There's a specific process. And so as I took a look at just this one simple process of being able to do live videos on social media, I realized that it didn't have to be such a painstaking process if I took that big thing and I broke it down into smaller pieces and then set aside the time to do those smaller pieces. Now, I found when I approached my social media like that and I approached the show like that, then it became less overwhelming. I still had time to get other things done in my business, and it allowed me to show up powerfully and consistently in the marketplace. And so that's how I, arrived at the process of chunking. And it's one of the things that when I work with my clients, is one of the things that we do is like, how do you set aside the time to do these things? How do you create the habits? Like I started at the top of the show talking about deliberate practice. How do you put yourself in the opportunity and the space to build habits around these things that you need to do for your social media? Okay. And so I'm hoping that that helped and that served someone today. So the next thing that comes up for me all the time is how to create a bank of ideas, a bank of countless or endless content ideas. So I get this, all the time, from people. How do you find the topics to talk about on social media? And so one of the things that I want to share with you is content is all around us. And if you believe that, just go ahead and just let me know. Content is all around us. And the reason why I say content is all around us is because our content comes from our experiences, and it becomes a matter of how well are we mining our experiences? How well are we unpacking those experiences and intentionally taking a look at using those experiences to serve our audience. And that's the shift, that if you have not started to take a look at social media in that way, if you have not started to take a look at your content and your experiences that way, then I'm going to, encourage you to do that, because that, to me, that is the number one secret of being able to share or have content or create content on a regular and consistent basis. Like I said, create a endless bank of content ideas. So that's the first thing, being able to really believe that content is all around us, and our content comes from our experiences, and our content comes from our stories. And it's all about what we're doing with those content, with those experiences, and with those stories. How well are we mining those experiences? And one of the things that has definitely helped me in this process is journaling. So, as we go through conversations with our clients, with our colleagues out there in social media, how well are you unpacking those social media, those experiences? So, do you have a process, that would allow you to sit down and journal and say, let me go ahead and, explore this, and how can I work this for my audience? And so, to be honest, that's how this topic came about. Like I said, I was in conversation, and we were literally talking about deliberate practice in other areas. And I was just like, oh, wow, that's what it is. This would be a really great opportunity for me to talk to our super achievers about getting in deliberate practice around their social media. And so I sat back and I spent some time journaling and taking a look at the process, and what does that look like, not just for our tribe members, but also for my clients as well. So, how am I breaking the concept of deliberate practice down to help my clients, to bless super achievers in our communities, how to, attract more people, bless them on social media. And so hence we have this conversation that is happening now. And so journaling is a specific part of the process, for me. And then the third part about it is being able to have a designated place to store your content ideas. So how many of you have a social media journal? Okay. And I know most people probably won't raise their hand to that and say, a social media journal, what's that? So if you don't have a social media journal, maybe you want to have a social media journal and have a place that you store your ideas for your social media content. You're able to flush through those ideas and turn those unique experiences and stories into value added pieces that you could bless your tribe with on social media. Or, maybe you might be putting your ideas on a doc, whether it's a Word doc or whether it's a Google Doc, and you store them on a folder on your computer, so you have easy access to go back and access your content ideas. It might be a spreadsheet, whether it's a Excel or Google Sheet. Have a specific designated place where you are going to store your content ideas. Because, like I said, things are going to come up for you, ideas are going to pop into your head, but you might not be able to flush that idea out right away. It might take some time. When I go back and I take a look at, my journals and things like that, I see ideas that I wrote down 6 months ago, a year ago, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this would be such a great topic. I could have this conversation now, but I won't be able to do that unless I had a place where I was intentionally storing those ideas. And so, one of the things that I do with my clients is help them create their content plan for profit storyboard. And so, as we go through our storyboarding process, I actually have a physical storyboard that gives them the opportunity to put their content ideas, their thoughts, and flush out their content. So as they're able to do live videos, they're able to write content, things like that for their social media, everything for them is all in one place. Okay. And so start to think about it. If you haven't been doing this already, create a bank. that will give you the opportunity to, to store your ideas for your content, and give yourself the opportunity to go into that bank, flush through those ideas, and then plan out your content, because that's the place where you want to get to. You want to be able to look forward and say, I have 90 days of content already planned. Or as I take a look at my year and the things that I'm doing in my business, the goals that I want to achieve in my business, I know my conversations on social media need to align with those goals and those things that I want to achieve. So, how do I plan my content to help me achieve those goals? What are the conversations that I need to have in the marketplace that would drive traffic to the things that I want to achieve? Okay. And so, if any of this is resonating with you and you would like to have a deeper conversation around this, I'm offering the opportunity to have a 30-minute discovery call. So, if you want to talk more about what it takes to create your content plan for profit storyboard, you want to talk about what it is to create content, get better at that, please schedule a time with me. And what I'm going to do is make sure that I get the link going across the screen, and you could schedule an appointment by going to bit.ly/SMS discovery. So once again, that's bit.ly/SMS discovery. And so if you, like I said, if you want to, get your questions answered around what it takes to really create a solid content plan for your business, let's have a call, schedule a time. I would love to do that with you. And I can't believe I say this all the time, that we are coming up at the top of the hour. And so it's time for me to leave you with our thought of the week. And the thought of the week is, success isn't always about greatness, it's about consistency. Consistent hard work leads to success. Greatness will come. And that's by Dwayne Johnson. So, once again, super achievers, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Influencer's Journey Show. I'm one of your hosts, Taria Hodge. And as we part, remember, know that you are brilliant, know that you are special, and the world is waiting for your unique gift. Take care until next time. Bye bye.